While I'll never write a love letter to my landlord, I do think these recent hotel conversions into supportive housing have been done with integrity, and maybe the future of New York really needs these type of surprising partnerships.
I'm Amie Pospisil. I'm the COO at BreakingGround. I've been with BreakingGround for 17 years, actually. I have a background in social work and been here kind of throughout our growth and evolution. And I'll give a little background on BreakingGround in just a minute. Kenya?
Hi, good morning. Kenia Maldonado, Vice President of Housing Services at Breaking Ground. Nice to meet everyone. Good morning.
To get started a little bit, I'll give a quick background on BreakingGround for folks who might not know us. We were founded in 1990. Our first project was the Times Square building on 43rd and 8th Avenue. It still stands, as we believe, as the nation's largest supportive housing residence with about 650 units. Since 1990, we've evolved to do a combination of ground up new development as well as repurposing old hotels and converting them into affordable and supportive housing. So we have a combination of both. All of our buildings essentially are affordable, a combination of affordable and supportive. So roughly half are for low-income folks, community units, and the balance would be for people who are formerly homeless, exiting long histories of homelessness on the street and or in the shelter. Everybody gets a lease in our housing. It's long-term permanent housing, so it's permanent forever and ever. Everybody gets a lease. Our formerly homeless units, people tend to stay on average for about 12 and a half years, which is pretty remarkable length of stay for folks. Especially when we consider that they have about an average of about 8 years length of homelessness prior to coming into those units. Over time, we broadened our scope of work to include not only the development and operation of permanent supportive housing, but also a host of social services programming. So we have a full continuum of services, and folks here we've worked with John and with others here for a while, because we have the street outreach contract for Midtown, for the area covering Midtown Manhattan. So we've been doing the street outreach work in Midtown Manhattan, all of Brooklyn, all of Queens, since about 2007, a little earlier in West Midtown. And many of the folks that we're working with on the street move through our street homeless programs, our outreach programs, and our transitional housing programs and into our permanent housing units. So that's a really continuum of care that we're really proud of, and that really works well to be able to have that continuity and knowing people as they've moved through street homeless programs and into permanent housing and with us for the long term. All of our housing has on-site social services attached, so it's really robust on-site social services with case management, social workers, and clinicians, especially in our newer buildings, but also we've been able to kind of back in some of the older buildings as well to bring primary care on-site as well as psychiatry services. So we really aim to bring everything that people need to remain stably housed in permanent housing for the long term. We aim to bring those services to folks, for people who are unable or unwilling to access community-based services. Moving on to the Stewart, this is our newest acquisition. And just a point of clarification, I saw in the earlier agenda, John, Riseboro is not involved in this project. So this was a joint venture with Slate Property Group. We closed on acquisition in December. Slate has done it. They did a different project with Riseboro, which is probably where that came from. But we are the nonprofit developer. We aim to close on construction at the end of this year, at the end of 2026. And the renovation, we expect to take about a couple of years, and then it'll open in 2028. So thank you for inviting us here, and I'll give you kind of a brief overview. And I also expect and would be happy to come back and provide updates along the way. Since we've got a little bit of time as things take shape and progress, I'd be happy to come back and meet with folks. So the Stewart Hotel, I think folks know it, but it's on the corner of 31st and 7th Avenue. Our plan is to renovate the building and turn it into 579 affordable and supportive units of housing. It'll be a mix of about 82% will be studios and 18% one bedrooms. Half of the units supportive for people exiting homelessness, and the other half will be for low income and affordable community units. And it'll be set at about 60% of AMI is where it's set right now. We will be doing the on-site property management and operations of the building, and also the on-site social services. So Kenia, her team will be the team responsible for providing all of the direct social services at this building. We're particularly excited given the location. We imagine that many of the folks that we're working with on the street here in Midtown Manhattan will have the opportunity to come inside to the Stewart. There is retail use at the street level and a parking garage, which we expect to continue and have them as tenants. So our on-site social services, kind of going back to that for a second, we'll have a whole team, and this is a large building, so we will have a lot of staff on site, but a full team of case management, staff, clinicians, social workers, and we will be bringing in primary care and psychiatry on site as well for part of the plan. I always like to add too that we have what we call we'd like to think of it as our special sauce of supportive housing, in addition to the kind of more typical array of social services, which is a kind of a layered on service that we bring into all of our buildings to help even further the reach that we have to connect our tenants to community, to bring in recreational programming, some therapeutic programming. We do lots of holiday events, recreational events, things that are building community within, but also building community in the neighborhoods with which they're now residing permanently. So we're excited to bring that as well to this building. We will have 24-hour attended lobby on the 31st Street entrance. So we'll have a very, again, robust presence there. So all of our buildings have a security guard presence at the front. We'll have CCTV systems, a multi-purpose room and a community room, which will also be available for community meetings. Groups can come in and use that space. And then some of our other typical amenities, a computer room, a fitness room, laundry, and so forth. So I will pause and just be mindful of everybody's time and see if anybody has questions or.
You got your developer slate and of course their developer. How did you come by? I guess you're not only managing it, you're owning it, you're guiding exactly what you need, you're working with the architects and so forth, and then the funds for the developer to redevelop this and change this over, of course, is a lot less expensive than building something. So this seems like a no-brainer, and we tried to do this during the pandemic, and if we had gained just even 3 or 4 hotels, we probably put a dent in the homelessness problem. And this is very, very valuable. The financing, can you?
Sure, I will admit that I did not bring the detail on the capital stack, so and how we put the financing together for everything. So I will have to ask that I save that for the next one if you want to invite me back. And I should also mention that Slate Property Group is our partner at acquisition and through construction, but we will be the sole owner. They step out of the deal after construction, after it's open, and we'll own it after that. So yeah.
I enjoy your work, what you've done throughout your history.
We're doing what we can in our space and bringing on more housing opportunity for people. We know that I've said for a long time, we're kind of only as good on the street and doing our street outreach work as there are opportunities to get people off the street permanently and into housing. And we operate safe haven transitional housing. So it's a really kind of lower threshold option compared to the traditional shelter system. It has kind of some of the rigidity, like around curfew and things like that, are relaxed a bit in the safe havens to make it more inviting, welcoming, and supportive to people who've been on the street for a really long time, sometimes even decades. And so while we kind of look at it as we need the safe haven housing right now because there's not enough permanent supportive housing for people to move into. Almost nearly 100% of the people that we're working with on the street and in our safe havens move into supportive housing, either with BreakingGround or another provider. And there's just not enough of those units. I think it stands right now that for every 5 applicants of supportive housing, there's one vacancy. And so that doesn't even take into account people that don't have a completed application yet. So we know that there's a real supply issue, and we really look to try and affect that as much as we can. And this will be our third. So we have the Times Square. We also have the Prince George on 28th between 5th and Madison. Our Christopher building in the old McBurney Y a little bit to the south. So bringing this building in this location is just it's also a nice kind of fold into that part of our portfolio as well. And the size, we now have, you know, a handful of buildings that are around this size as well. So it works well, and we're able to get a lot of folks in at the rent up period. Like I said, you know, coming directly from the street, from the area that they're homeless in. So
any other works going on?
We have a building that we expect TCO in the fall. That's a little bit to the north on the east side on 9. It takes up the block on 3rd Avenue between 97th and 98th. It's around the same size, a little bit smaller. And we're renting up right now our first permanent supportive housing in Queens, in Jamaica, Queens, and it's a senior residence. So we're in the middle of rent up right now for that. So those are some of our most you know, exciting new projects that we have, and we do have a robust pipeline that's a little further out. So we have about at least 1,500 units in the development pipeline that are a little bit further out. For anybody with some Brooklyn connections, we are part of the development team that's redeveloping the it's the western portion of the Kingsborough Psychiatric Campus, which will include several supportive housing residences that we're developing, operating, and providing services for, tearing down the two shelters that exist and converting them into brand new state-of-the-art purpose-built shelter design. And then there's a home ownership component that's one of the other development partners, and seniors. So we're busy.
Yeah. So where would you put the numbers of people who are suffering homelessness?
Oh, the count on the street?
Overall,
overall, I think, well, it's timely that you're asking that question, because we're right on the cusp of doing the annual point in time hope count, which has been a little bit delayed this year because of weather stuff. So we're waiting on that. But last year, I think the count was around 5,000 citywide. It's kind of hovered around there for folks living unsheltered on the street. And it's one of the ways that we try to understand the number of people living on the street, because there's really not a perfect science to it. So we have to look at a bunch of different data sources, including the point in time estimate, including the data that comes from our street outreach programs, you know, living on the street, and collateral information from folks in the community who may know people that aren't on our radar. So we use kind of all these sources of information. Oftentimes it's felt a little bit like the point in time, the annual point in time estimates might be a little bit of an undercount, but you know, again, it's kind of one data point that we use to help understand what to do.
Especially if you do it in the winter, right? In the winter.
Doing it on the coldest night. So we try to capture everybody.
Yeah. So I'll ask one more question. I'll leave it to see what others will have. Amie and Kenia, what brought you to this work, and how long have you been involved?
Oh boy. Well, I came to New York City from the Midwest in the early 2000s for grad school, and wasn't really entirely sure what area of social work I wanted to go into. And I had a couple of field placements in social work school, and then was hired at an organization in the Bronx right out of grad school, doing street homeless outreach work. And it just grabbed me. It really grabs me. I gravitated toward it, and I've stayed with it, you know, kind of ever since. I think, you know, I had some earlier experiences prior to moving out here doing some work with folks with housing insecurity. It was more in like the child welfare system, and seeing that one of the primary barriers to people being able to provide care for their children was inadequate housing. So I think I kind of very early on, that was a connection point for me. And then coming out here for grad school and having that exposure really locked me in. And I've been with it ever since.
And Kenia, how about you?
So specific to the housing work, I actually went to grad school at Columbia and graduated thinking that I would be just working around families, youth, and children's services. And one of my first jobs out of grad school was working in the shelter, so I was able to understand the system. And then I actually landed an opportunity at BreakingGround, and I started as an assistant director of their shelter program. And then I went on to do some city government work specific to housing around the CAP system, which is the Coordinated Assessment Placement Systems. So helping to build that system out to capture the most vulnerable people living on the street and in the homeless system. So that was part of my housing work. And then I went on to become an executive director of housing services. So really focusing in on youth who are aging out of foster care around housing. So housing has become my passion. And I would say I'm a product of New York City Housing Authority. So I also grew up in NYCHA, in Harlem. So housing, I feel like everyone should have housing. So housing is an important part of everything. And now here I am back at Breaking Ground as a vice president and hoping to push the housing work. So I just, this is an area that I didn't think that I would love, but I actually do.
Yeah, you remember you helped me with an individual off the street, I believe. We had to navigate the system, and we were successful. And I appreciate your support there. And, does anyone else have questions?
My comment is colored by the fact that Slate is my landlord. And while I'll never write a love letter to my landlord, I will say something positive about them today. The entire partnership with you and Slate on this Stewart Hotel deal, and then last year with Riseborough and Slate on the JFK Hilton, is very impressive and gives me a lot of hope for the future of the city of New York. Specifically because my landlord is incredibly comfortable with the supportive housing universe and ecosystem here in New York. I mean, there's even supportive housing here in this building where I live. 24 units, I think it is. The point being that not every for-profit landlord is comfortable with the supportive housing world. And as I said, while I'll never write a love letter to my landlord, I am very impressed on that aspect.
I think, for a long time, we didn't see a lot of kind of for-profit developers and non-for-profit developers and seeing like a real pathway for joint ventures. And it wasn't part of our earlier work at Breaking Ground to do these kinds of partnerships. These pathways have opened up more in recent years, and also for-profit developers doing homeless set-asides in their affordable portfolio themselves. And bringing supportive units into really large development. I mean, the big names of developers. And I think sometimes there's a reaction of like, oh, I don't know, can we, like, dare I say it here, can we trust it? What is that going to mean if it's not, a nonprofit? I think what I feel really hopeful and optimistic about is that we're helping to shape the landscape and other providers too with for-profit developers about how to do this work and do this work well, and the importance of needing to have more inclusive housing options within their developments and their portfolios, and that there's a way to do it and a way to do it well, and particularly when they're partnering with strong nonprofits who have a background in doing the development work and operating and services, that not only are there kind of these literal joint venture opportunities, but we're advising along the way. And I'm really hopeful that helps, shape the way that housing development looks and having homeless set-asides looks in, for the future of the city.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone else? Sue, do you know Sue from Main Chance?
I know Main Chance. Hi, Sue.
Yeah. Good. Always a good person to build relationships. They do some incredible work. Everything going okay there at Main Chance?
Yes, everything is well. We have 2 warming buses outside to help with the overage because we're full every night.
Yeah.
So for the past couple of days, we've been having 2 buses outside, one for male, those that identify as male, and those that identify as female. So that way nobody's out in the cold.
Are they roaming the city? Or are they stopped, parked somewhere?
They just parked outside of our building, so that way they could come in and use the bathroom, come in and eat when they need to. But they're here 24/7.
Is this administration helping you out? You got some good support?
Yes, for the past week with extreme cold, they've been very helpful. So that's been working out.
Good. We didn't have the help we did, I think, with the last administration, as we should have. Wouldn't you agree with that, Amie?
It was complicated.
Yeah, right.
Part of our challenges is always kind of keeping up with the changes of administration, no matter what they are, and what's new, what's different, what's kind of the same but rebranded, and making sure that we find our way to stay true to to the services that we're providing and getting the help for folks. And so I think, again, like some of these early days of new administrations are always kind of a time to learn, a time to educate, we hope, and make sure that we're setting ourselves up and the people we serve to get everything we need over the next few years.
Yeah, I remember when you built when you were transformed to Prince George. I took a tour, and that was pretty impressive. By the way, we do some. I think you know this, but we do some farming projects. We We have the urban farm at the Midtown Court. We have a farm upstate, 50 by 100 square feet, that we bring a lot of food down. And we did 3,775 pounds of food we brought down, and we focused on public housing because that's where that was really important to bring the people together and define power, in numbers. I know at one point there was a rooftop we were exploring. I think it was at the Prince George, putting a garden on the rooftop. So if you have any space and any rooftops that you want to explore that with, we'd love to talk to you.
That's great. That'd be great. And would love to think about it for the Stewart and see what the opportunities might be there as well. We had a CSA program at the Prince George for a long time. I think COVID really interrupted it and it's been a little tough to restart, but I'd love to explore that with you. That fits perfectly into our programming.
Yeah, we could probably help you with that. Not only if we've certainly provided enough food last year, we can expand that. Hopefully we're going to expand that. You never know. But we do have we're connected with a lot of other CSAs and so forth.
Yeah.
And
thanks. And thank you for bringing up the food insecurity, because that is a real issue for, increasingly problematic for tenants in our building. The formerly homeless tenants have their income is like less than $10,000 a year. And on the low income side, we have some folks that are really at poverty levels, even with rent stabilized housing, it's very tough on their limited income. So we've been doing a lot of work to focus on food insecurity.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Especially when you get to the, retiring age and Social Security, just living, if you haven't saved a whole lot. The food insecurity that I see everywhere. I see people lined up at the Hell's Kitchen cupboard. We would pack it, it'd be gone. Everything inside of it would be gone within an hour. It's really, a huge problem. Yeah, I'm getting older, and my earning power is going to be gone. So that's a huge problem for us all. It's becoming very unlivable, and I like what you're doing. You're combining those aspects, and that's why we focus on health, housing, and food, because those are the basics we need. Any last words, Kenia?
Oh, I just look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Some of the people who may have statistical information about how many of the population of homeless in the street have physical disabilities, who may have ambulatory difficulties. Any rough idea on that?
I don't have stats, but I will tell you that it's a significant number of people that we work with on the street have mobility issues or other serious health conditions that really limit their ambulation or their mobility. It's a lot.
I'm from the Elevator Action Group and very active in getting accessibility on the buses, on the subway, and we have MTA approval for 2 elevators in the subway on 23rd Street and 7th and 8th Avenue. And I was sort of the catalyst to get that started and rolling and get a lot of community support.
With the numbers between the people floating in the hospitals and doubling up, living in cars and so forth, I used to argue at least 250,000 in the city, and now I'm thinking it's more like 500,000. Is that a good assumption?
Perhaps we'll have to look. There's definitely some groups putting out some good work around some of those numbers and estimates. So we can take a look at, again, it's another tough one, and doing our work on the street. It's part of the triaging work that we do to help figure out, are you doubled up and sometimes staying on the street here and there when you can't find another, couch to sleep on, if you will. Are you sleeping out? We do engage people that are sleeping in cars. So we always want to know that and engage people living in cars. It's not an enormous percentage of the people we're working with on the street that are living out of cars, but at any given time, we might have a per borough, maybe in our outreach teams, like maybe 10 or so households living out of vehicles. But it's entirely possible. Those are much easier to fly under the radar of things. People who are couch surfing or doubled up and living out of cars. So
in the hospitals.
And in hospitals, yeah, we do. Yeah. We've got some growing partnerships. We actually have a partnership with New York Presbyterian uptown and downtown. We're doing work there with them to engage people who are homeless, both who are admitted to their units, but also people who are they're kind of going into the emergency rooms for social needs and purposes, or maybe they're going in for healthcare, but then they stick around the emergency room.
Yeah.
They don't have another place to go.
Miriam, thanks. I've seen your name in the donation, by the way, in the donation, in the GoFundMe donation. That's very kind of you. Again, I need some participants on the board. I need somebody to help with the street sheets. I need to update those. So anybody with interest in even doing some projects with us, that would be really helpful. We hope we can all work together here.